I made a goal to myself to make at least one junk journal a month. I ended up making more than 12 journals. So sometimes I made just one journal per month, sometimes I made 3. I hope to continue this tradition on to next year, and you can let me know in the comments below which one is your personal favorite. I hope that this inspires you and that you save this video for later when you're creating your own journals. Since it is December, I am so happy to announce that for those who were waiting and wanting, we finally have some Christmas Amity Bloom washi tapes along with restocks from previous collections will be in the shop this Monday, December the 9th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the washi tape section. I wanted to capture the beauty of Christmas, traditions, and the nostalgia of the holiday season, with vintage recipes for how to make ginger cookies, a vintage Christmas card from the 1970s that was sent to me from my grandma, vintage German tickets, wallpapers, fabric trims, beautiful French fabrics. This collection celebrates the beauty of Christmas traditions, all of them coming together in a beautiful Christmas color palette that I hope inspires you and that I hope makes you so excited to use every single Christmas. We're going to start off with the journal that I actually made in November last year. This is the journal that kind of changed everything for me because I started using my precious trims and laces. I'm always finding new things to add to my journals. However, I keep them in boxes because I always think, oh, they're too precious. I don't want to use them yet. So in this journal, I used a lot of my precious materials like little trims, little sari silks, this gorgeous rose fabric. I used the Her Story digital kit as well as my pink bow. My favorite page spread in this journal has to be this middle signature. Here is a pocket for a photograph. This embossed little pocket actually flips out where I can have my journaling space here, add my quotes. And I really enjoyed adding this painting just as a decoration to the page. This is from Her Pink Bow and it's truly gorgeous. Prior to making this journal, I've never used like a painting as a full page like layout, so I really enjoyed that. This journal was my December journal of last year. It's a very chunky little journal. This one was actually gifted to me by a sweet friend, and then I just altered a little bit of the cover. I do have a full flip of this, so I will leave that linked below. In this journal, my favorite page spread definitely has to be this page here in the center. I share more about this page in the video, but I just liked how I collaged all of my little pieces here. I made a little egg with a nest made of lace, and I just decorated the edges with paint and little doodles, and I made little birds that symbolized my mom and my dad at the top of our little nest, and then me and my 2 other siblings. So I thought this was so sweet. I put a lot of love into my December journals because I always like to flip through them, full of beautiful memories, and I just love treasuring it every single year. This was the first journal that I actually made for 2024. This was my January journal. I experimented with new techniques with this one. I loved how feminine it was. This was when I first started using like little removable pieces on the cover. So you can see here, I just made this little floating tag with some crepe paper, one of my little pressed flowers, and a crystal rhinestone in the center. I love this. This is so pretty. And like I said, experimenting with different techniques for cover making. I did share process videos on how I created the inside pages for this journal. This one was actually going to be my Christmas journal. I remember putting my little paper trees that I made in here just to keep them safe, but I love, love, love this journal. This was my journal for February, A Story Within My Heart. I filmed a full and detailed flip through of this one, as well as shared the tutorial for how I made the no-sew binding method for the spine. I used the beautiful kit of Love Is along with my pressed flowers. This journal is always a joy to flip through whenever I need inspiration. There's 2 spreads that I absolutely adore in this journal, and one of them is creating this interactive part of the cover where a little envelope is tucked, and then by using this little petal, this rose petal, you can pull up that flip and you see this gorgeous painting of this lovely lady, a rose, and then the little floral lace that I put in her hair. It's hard to find, you know, really pretty vintage floral lace, but look at how much joy it brings me every time that I flip to this page. That's why it's so important to use our precious things in the journals that we make. Now, this is my second favorite spread. I always flip back to this page because of how interactive it is. I liked using this little ribbon as a sample here instead of stitching it. This was so much fun to do. It was a little interactive trifold heart that flips open, and then I completed the sentiment, poetry for my heart. And I used some velvet that I was hoarding, my little pressed flowers, and a sentiment that ended up being parts of our washi. But this was just so much fun, and you get this entire little trifold in the kit as well in case you want to make some little valentines. I just love all of the colors. So for March, I spent a couple of days working in this journal. This was the journal that I showed how to make that no-sew binding. So a lot of you have probably seen this journal. It's a little notebook, and I used it to place all of my little Polaroids in. I have not finished actually decorating it. I started it. I think my favorite page spread, I love this, the old distressing of the music, and just one of the Polaroids from the kit that I turned into a little paper bag. It's super fun to just flip through all of these layers. This one was a fun journal to make in the beginning of March. And then probably my favorite journal of the entire year, my artist pocketbook. This was at the end of March, and in April, this was the start of like this style of journal that I've been obsessed with making so far. I love the size. It's actually the journal that I enjoy working in the most out of all of them. It's pretty much the size of my hand. It reminds me of like a vintage book, and I like how interactive it is. I already have shared a full flip through of this one as well. My favorite pages in here are a couple of pages in the middle because that's where I combined a bit of my art with my words, with photos of myself, and mixing that with like vintage photos that inspire me. The colors of this page, I love combining pink and teal together, and that's why I think this journal speaks to my heart so much. I use my favorite colors in here, and I also like incorporating a little bit of purple and lilacs. And by just playing, I think I made one of the journals that truly, truly touches my heart. Using some of my washi and finding images that really speak to me. My heart is home. Incorporating ephemera that is meaningful, and altering magazines and painting on them. This is also when I started putting some of my millinery flowers in here. It is, I believe, my favorite journal of the year. Always the journal that I reach for the most when I need inspiration. For May, I created the kit Sage Skies. The creams, very muted color palettes. I was just so inspired by these colors. I haven't played with them before. And I started experimenting with different ways to layer my covers, using laces and creating little skirts. This one I haven't finished completely, but I cannot wait to share. It's a beautiful story. The title is She Blossomed Anyway. So this one is still a work in progress, not completely finished. And then this is my little tiny, it's like my little fairy journal. I work in it as if it's my art journal. So I do use paint in here, my millinery flowers with a little rhinestone, images that I really like. I need to start incorporating them, embossed paper, pieces of jewelry that is falling apart I want to incorporate on the pages like a little tab. I'm starting to use, finally, my precious like little metal sequin trims. I know I won't find ever again, but I can start using little bits and pieces here and there. And I shared this page on my Instagram and on Pinterest. I will leave my Pinterest down below where you can see detailed photos of all of my journals. This is a true vintage die cut from the scrapbook that I purchased, and I just loved how it looks here. I don't want to glue it on there yet. I think I'm going to scan it, fuzzy cut it so I can keep the original and maybe even make journals out of this like on the cover. I also really liked this one where I did some journaling and used my little butterflies. And then on this page, one of my vintage photos from the snapshot kits and some of our washi tape. I'm giving myself a couple weeks to just play and decorate and finish some of my journals so that I can finally film those flip throughs. And on the back cover, I almost forgot, I collaged various little laces and I started playing around with layering silks and hankies and velvets. For June, I think you all know this journal very well. It's my Her Wings journal. I took the skirt off as it's right next to me. This was a lot of fun to do because I always wanted to make a paper bag journal, and this was just one of the styles that I wanted to play around with first. I used my paper bags kit to form the pages, and I did a no-sew binding method. I loved the fairy theme, and the kit Her Wings and Sage Skies was just a pure joy to work in these pages. This is when I also started using a ton of these clear embellishments. And of course, combining vintage photos with my writing, I really love that. It doesn't have to be like a Dear Diary kind of writing. This was just my thoughts on this quote that I put at the top from a book that I found. And of course, we can't forget the beautiful fairy wings that are kept nice and safe in the envelope. Making like a little winter fairy journal would be so sweet with these colors and the kit as well. For July, I actually wanted to go back to my roots a little bit and experiment with fabric covered, kind of like traveler's notebook journals. I have not made journals like this in so long, and I forgot how much I loved them. This one was the first one that I made. I just wanted to add my little buttons and practice my hand sewing. And then on the back, I collaged a different kind of lace on the cover. Still isn't finished yet. I haven't even done the binding or truly chosen the inside papers. This was the next journal that I made in July, like a standard size cover. And I found a really beautiful quilt from the thrift shop. And I started collaging my precious little fabrics and just kind of playing around. It's not perfect at all. I really enjoyed how it felt to just stitch with fabrics again in a really organic way. It reminds me of my early journals, and the colors I think go really well together. And same thing with this one. You can see the inside of the quilt. I have all the papers collected. I have all the little pieces and parts that I want to include in here, but I need to get to actually finishing this journal up. So you'll notice a lot of my journals I made the cover and I selected the inside pages, but I have not finished them because I tend to just kind of start many projects as I'm inspired. I'm very excited to actually work in this journal because I want to use some beautiful imagery from magazines and gorgeous fabrics that I've just been collecting for years, and my vintage papers. I'll probably finish these two at the same time since they're kind of sister journals in a way. This one was the last one that I made in July, and I was very inspired by it, probably because it was a bigger size. I think this is like an A5, and I loved it so much because I started adding ruffles on the covers and layering like little skirts as part of the cover. On the back, added some beads, some laces, just really pretty. I love seeing all of my vintage things on my journals. I think it's the greatest way to use them, truly. And on the inside, I've shared this journal before. I used papers from Her Wings and some vintage backgrounds and some magazine pages. This journal has not been filled in yet. I just made the bare basic papers. So there's not a favorite page of mine. Oh, I love that. I love that actually. So maybe the imagery pages are my favorite. I think it has a very elegant, very peaceful color palette, and the imagery is gorgeous. This is also one that I just love holding. It feels so good in your hands. This one is a journal that I shared on my Instagram, and I started creating it in August. I wanted to use some techniques from the Everyday Journal course and combine them with the type of journal that I'm making right now, which is a mix of like a hardcover that's layered with a soft collage spine and a fabric back. The embroidery was made with vintage yarn. I used beads on here and some of my laces. Haven't experimented with this kind of color combination. of like a salmon-y pink and different pinks and lilacs and blues, but I just love it. And then you can kind of see on the inside, I just collected some little fabric bits and pieces that I want to use on the inside of this journal. This one is definitely going to be a treat to share in the new year. This journal took me about 3 months to fully construct and complete because I just went all in. I was obsessed with Dear Fawn's story, with the papers, and I ended up using a color palette that in the beginning I was a little nervous to combine, but I was so inspired I couldn't stop adding things to this journal. I actually started creating another cover, as this is the one that I was experimenting with and seeing if I like the size and, you know, trying out new things. But I do want to make a sister journal, Dear Fawn's sister, probably in the new year. As you can see, I start so many covers. Some of them get finished, some of them don't, but I was really happy to finish this journal because the story was just too beautiful not to complete and to share. And I think my idea throughout the whole year with why I made a new journal every month was I wanted to find the style that I really loved and that truly inspired me, so that I know what you guys would love to see either in a class or, you know, my goal for next year is to finally start sharing my journals again. I think this is my favorite page out of the journal, but honestly, every time I flip through this journal, I fall in love with a new page every single time. I wanted to end the year off with my December journal. This is the first time I have shown this journal before. I'm not going to do a full flip through as I want to actually fill up every single page. This is going to be my December kind of daily journal. I really played around with layering and I cannot wait to show you all of the little pieces and, you know, the inspiration behind them and explain how you can create something similar as well. But just the layering and oh, I just love the colors. Last year I went very white and green and cream, and this year I wanted a bit more color, but I wanted it to look truly vintage. The whole idea is I wanted to make it look like a scrapbook that was found like in an attic. I think that's the style that I really like right now. You know, I wanted it to look very worn and loved. So there's lots of red in here, lots of vintage velvets. I used my washi tape, my holiday washi for the first time. I cannot wait to share. Like this, for example, is some of our washi. It looks just like fabric. Use beautiful fabrics in here. Oh my gosh, the little ruffle with the bow. You know, vintage colors, velvet tabs. I can't wait to finally be finished with this journal and to share how I'm going to be using it with all of my ephemera and my photos. I feel so much enjoyment from just seeing all of the journals that I made in front of me. I remember at the beginning of the year, I wanted to take this challenge on and not give up, and every year at least make one journal that was new to me, that I tried new techniques with, that I used my precious things. It truly made me appreciate journal making so much more. As you create more journals, you become more comfortable and you start developing a style that is truly unique to your own. So I will be continuing with this challenge in the new year. Fingers crossed that I continue with a journal a month. Definitely let me know your favorite journal in the comments below. I think I selected my top 5 here on the table. These 5 just completely have my whole heart because they're all so different to each other, and I think that's what I really enjoyed. They all have their own personality. If you are interested in our one-of-a-kind holiday washi tapes, I will leave them linked below in my Etsy shop, along with the date that they will be listed. Until next time, I hope that you have a wonderful day full of inspiration. Let me know which journal spoke to your heart, and I hope you have a beautiful and wonderful day full of creativity.